They call me Squirrel.
What's going on, Squirrel Squad? It's your boy, the Squirrel. This is called Funny English Idioms and Why We Say Them. This came up just in my feed, I believe, and I thought, man, this is just getting fed to me by YouTube, and seems like something I'd like to check out. So here it is. It's Funny English Idioms. Are you ready? I'm ready. I mean, I don't even know what I'm in for. I mean, I never know what I'm in for. Who am I kidding? But let's check it out. You ready? Do it. I'm in.
Maybe it's because I'm a Londoner that I love London so.
Hip hip tally ho, welcome to Jules Guides, where I wander around London and tell you interesting things you may not have known already. And people often say to me, Julesy, oh Jules.
Maybe it came up in my feed because I'm subscribed to this channel. That's probably why. I thought it was one of them random ones YouTube recommended, but I think it must have just come up because I'm subscribed to his channel. Let's continue on.
Just why do you Brits talk so funny? So I decided to make a video about English idioms and expressions and where they come from. Now, the reason I'm standing here in Fleet Street is because us Brits have always had a morbid fascination for going to the toilets. In fact, we find it hilarious, and we have managed to base a whole sense of humour around it. For example, when I need to go, I might point Terence at the tiles, or point Percy at the porcelain, or indeed drain the main vein. And if I wanted to do something a little bit more solid, I might perhaps, as I did this morning, release a chocolate hostage, or drop the kids off at the pool perhaps. Now take, for example, the expression to spend a penny. The first public toilets were actually at something called the Great Exhibition in 1851, created by a fellow called George Jennings in Crystal Palace. Anyway, after that finished, they installed the first actual street level public toilets here at number 95 Fleet Street. The dubious pleasure of being on that location now belongs to a newsagent. But the cost of going to the toilet was 1 penny, so you had to spend a penny in order to go to the toilet. Now, before the days of flushing toilets in people's houses, they used to just chuck it out of the window, straight into the street below. And that's why some of these houses along Fleet Street still have the overhanging fronts, because those are the original Tudor buildings from the olden days, so that people could shout "Gardez-lou" and then chuck out their poo, and it would clear the pedestrians directly beneath them, walking underneath, and it would just land directly into the road. Gardez-lou, in fact, comes from a corruption of the French "Gardez-l'eau," which means be careful of the water I'm about to throw.
Wow. So I'm going to spend a penny means I got to go to the bathroom. Um, I've heard of this before, but I thought it was in Rome. I think I heard about it, where they would just dump crap and pee out the window into the streets, but they had like these deep gullies on both sides of the streets, so when it rained, it would wash it away. I don't know. Either way, spend a penny. I'm gonna start using it. I'm gonna spend a penny right back. I like the expression. You could hear a pin drop. I know this one expression I know, so I want to see the origin of it.
Now, did you ever hear someone say it was so quiet you could hear a pin drop? Well, the reason why I'm outside Twinings here in the Strand is because in 1706, Thomas Twining opened up the first tea room here in...
It's Twinings. I always call it Twinnings. Man.
London, and you notice the logo above there, he put that up in 1787, and that is the oldest company logo still in operation in the world. So what would happen is that when they were bidding for the tea at the tea auctions, they'd only have a certain amount of time to place their bid. So in order to time it, they'd stick a pin inside a candle and they'd let the candle burn down, and when the candle reached the level of the pin would fall out. And if of course there were no further bids, the room would be silent and you could hear a pin drop. Interestingly, actually, inside Twinings, they've got a little mini museum at the back where they've got a box that says TIP on it, which is actually the first tip jar in the world. You would put money into it to ensure promptness. So you'd put your money in the box, and that would mean that you'd get served a bit more quickly. So it was to ensure promptness.
See, I've heard two different versions of the word tip and what it meant. First of all, really cool that Twinings is the place where the pin drop came from. Them going to the auctions or whatever. I always thought it was Twinnings. It made sense that it was Twinings by the way it was spelled, but I was like, oh, yeah. Anyway, but the tip to ensure promptness, I've heard that, but I've heard people say, no, that's not right. It's to improve proper service, not to improve promptness. And that's tips. And I was so well, it didn't make sense because it's a tip. But anyway, Thank you for confirming.
TIP.
Baker's dozen. 13.
Now take, for example, a baker's dozen. Why do we say a baker's dozen?
I think this comes from when I was a kid. My buddy down the road, Jeff, his dad they lived on a huge farm, and kind of funny, big farm down the road. It's kind of just empty now, and the grandparents I think are passed, and maybe his parents will live in there, but huge piece of property, and his dad grew cow corn every year for the cattle. They had tons of cows. They'd milk them. They had chickens. It was a full blown farm, and up next to the house there was like a little field, and just like a little spot that was kind of caged off where none of the animals got into or whatever. And his dad would always plant a field of corn there, regular corn, and he would tell Jeff, "This is for you. Do what you want with it. You can sell it and make some money though over the summer if you want." And this is how his father he'd have money to go get candy at the penny candy store. His father gave him this opportunity to sell corn. So he would call up his friends, and if you came over, if you wanted to sit out, if you want to help him pick corn, bag it, and then sit on the front lawn, he'd split the money with you. So we sold corn. It was $1 a dozen, and we always gave everybody a baker's dozen. Gave everybody 13, and so we would tell people when we handed it to them, "There you go, and it's a baker's dozen for you." So we'd always let them know. So people would come get 13 ears of corn for $1, and then we'd just usually we'd sell like 3 or 4 dozen, and then we'd put everything away and run down to the store. But I think a baker's dozen comes from the baker. It's a little thank you from the bakery, throws in the extra product. I guess that's what it is.
I mean, a normal dozen is 12, but a baker's dozen is 13. And here I am outside, the site of the baker's shop, which belonged to a King's baker, which started the Great Fire of London in 1666 in Pudding Lane. In 1266, there was a king called King Henry III, and he brought in a law called the Assize of Bread and Ale. That has nothing to do with arse size. If you're interested in the size of arses, then there are other videos on the internet which may be of interest to you. But yes, the size of bread and ale meant that if you sold short of the weight that you said you were selling, then you could be pilloried and flogged, put in the town stocks, etc., etc. And so, because everything was done by weight, when a baker sold 12 loaves of bread, in order to avoid incurring this penalty, the bakers would often say, "Well, I think 12 loaves should be the right weight of bread that you've ordered, but I'll chuck in an extra 13th just in case. So I don't want to be short of my weights." Hence the phrase, a baker's dozen. How fascinating.
That is fascinating. I did not know that. I would have never guessed it that way. That's really interesting and pretty cool. Sent to Coventry.
Now, when I was a kid at school, if you misbehaved, the teacher would say, "Now I'm sending you to Coventry," and you'd have to go and sit in the corner and nobody would speak to you. But anyway, being sent to Coventry in general means everyone ignores you and no one speaks to you. So the reason I'm standing here outside the Royal Exchange, outside Bank Station, is that the Royal Exchange was first opened by a fella called Tom Gresham in, the 1500s sometime. And it was intended as being a bourse, a marketplace. It was one of the first proper established marketplaces in London, and all the city livery companies would do business here. Merchants, traders would come in and sell stuff, and if you misbehaved, they'd lose their permission to do business in the city, and then they'd have to go to the closest city which had a marketplace, which back then was Coventry. But I've also heard people say that it comes from the English Civil War in the 1650s. If you were a royalist, you supported the royal family, you were captured by the parliamentarians, they would take you prisoner and send you up to Coventry to be a prisoner, where you would be ostracised by the parliamentarian supporting locals. Now it's just after New Year and I've been overindulged.
On the wagon. They come from this is my background here. On the wagon. If you're on the wagon, you're staying sober, right? And if you fall off the wagon, you started drinking again.
Drink like everybody else, and I've decided to stop drinking. So if anyone offers me a drink, I'll tell them, sorry, I'm on the wagon. Meaning, I'm on the wagon, I'm not drinking at the moment. And the reason we say that is because, well, here at St Giles in the Fields Church, is where the condemned prisoners who were on their way to be hanged at Tyburn Gallows, back in the old days when they used to do the hangings up in Marble Arch, they would stop here and the good people from the church would offer one last drink to the condemned man here at the pub next door, which in those days was called the Resurrection Gate. So they'd go for a drink, then they'd have to get back onto the wagon, and their feet wouldn't touch the ground again until they reached the gallows and were dead, actually. So this would be the last time their feet would touch the ground. They'd generally be bought one drink, and if anyone said, "Hey, do you want another drink?" they'd say, "Oh no, sorry, he's on the wagon." Thanks for watching. If you enjoy my films, don't forget to subscribe to the...
He's on the wagon. He's going to die. Don't waste a drink on him. I had no idea. I love finding out where word phrases and origins come from. And that was a really that was cool because that's what a lot of these were. And these are like, oh man, like stuff like this, like digging into like how things became and this kind of stuff. I think this is where I learned about the thing about the throwing the crap out the window. There's an old expression called "Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater," and it's like literally translated into exactly what it means. Um, Everyone, they would boil water and get the hot water, and the man of the house got the hottest bath. He got the first bath. He was usually the dirtiest. He was out working, and then the mother would go second, and then oldest, youngest, she would go with the babies. By the time he got to the bottom, the last person to take the bathwater was pretty dirty. So don't lose the baby in the dirty water. Forget that he's in there and throw him out with the bathwater. Basically, is the idea of it. So I actually have a big, huge Webster's dictionary. It was like a $90, $100 book that I bought years and years ago, and I gave it to my son Noah. He has it now, and it's Webster's History of Word and Phrase Origins. Great book, awesome book, and this is what this gentleman's doing. It's just that kind of stuff. I love it. I hope you guys enjoyed some of these funny English idioms. I thought they were great. I knew some of them, and I learned some new stuff about the ones I did know, and I learned some new phrases and learned all about those. Thanks for coming in, checking this out, and hanging out with me. I will put a link to this gentleman's channel in the description below. Be sure you check him out. He's got a great little channel. And I'll see if there's some more cool videos like this that he has. He does a lot of like street view walkarounds and explaining history and showing stuff off, showing off sites, things like that. And I'm sure there's tons more that he does. I'm just giving you the gist of why I signed up and what I was watching a few of his videos on. So I hope you enjoyed it. I'll catch you soon. You guys be good, all right? You don't have to be good, but if you want to be good, scroll up.
Cheese and crackers, crackers and cheese. Cheese and crackers, crackers and cheese. Cheese and crackers, crackers and cheese. Cheese and crackers, crackers and cheese.